I watched my friend get shot in the neck. Yeah, that's what happened. I just want to say that he was publicly executed again before the world. The question is why, right?
Charlie was not silenced. His movement is only beginning. The voices of millions globally have been awakened, furthering his cause and mission far beyond anyone's comprehension. We won't cower in fear. We will never surrender. We are resolved to live free from lies and seek out
What if the bullet that ended Charlie Kirk's life wasn't the real culprit? What if it was a forbidden romance with his 23-year-old chief of staff that buried the truth forever? We've spent weeks dissecting the assassination, the shooter's motives, the political fallout. But now, a Turning Point USA whistleblower is stepping forward with a claim so explosive, it reframes everything. This isn't about donors, ideology, or even the organization's future. It's about Mikey McCoy, Charlie's right-hand man, his shadow on the road, the young staffer who moved into the spotlight the second his boss fell. And according to insiders, the real scandal isn't how Charlie was taken from us, but what he allegedly knew about Mikey's private life in the days before his final speech.
Staff and right-hand
Charlie Kirk's chief of staff, and his reaction to Charlie Kirk getting shot.
Yeah.
And this video, because when you told me this morning about this, I was very dismissive.
Yeah.
And I was like, come on, man, that's so stupid. And then I watched it, and instantly I was like, he's in it.
Let's start with the moment that changed everything. September 10th, 2025, Utah Valley University. Charlie Kirk stands on stage under a banner reading, "Prove me wrong," mid-sentence, when a single shot rings out. The crowd erupts in chaos. Screams, bodies hitting the floor, security rushing the stage. But then there's Mikey. While everyone else freezes in shock, he doesn't panic. He doesn't rush to Charlie's side. He doesn't even look toward the commotion. Instead, he lifts his phone to his ear and walks away, calm, deliberate, like a man who already knows what comes next. That reaction, captured on multiple cameras, became the first red flag. And now, sources inside Turning Point say it wasn't just odd behavior. It was the behavior of someone protecting a secret far bigger than a tragedy.
The first time I met Charlie was when I was driving him and his then girlfriend Erica to the airport after he had spoken at my father's church. The entire car ride, he was grilling me on Aristotle, Socrates, Plato, American history. At the end, he said, "Don't go to college, come work for me instead."
Here's where the story takes a darker turn. The whistleblower claims Charlie had recently uncovered an affair, one involving Mikey and another male member of the Turning Point inner circle. Not a rumor, not gossip, but a confirmed relationship that leadership had been quietly managing for months. The problem? Charlie wasn't just the face of the organization. He was its moral compass, the man who built his brand on Christian values and traditional family structures. If word got out that his protege was involved in a same intimacy romance, especially with someone else inside the operation, the fallout wouldn't just be personal. It would dismantle the carefully crafted image of Turning Point overnight. And according to insiders, that's exactly what Charlie was threatening to expose in the weeks before his final tour. Now, let's talk about the phone calls, because this is where the contradictions start piling up. Erica Kirk, Charlie's widow, told the New York Times that Mikey called her seconds after the shooting, screaming, "He's been shot! Get the kids! Get security!" A frantic, traumatized reaction. But Mikey's father, Pastor Robert McCoy, later gave a different account, claiming his son called him first, asking for prayers. Then the executive producer of Charlie's show, Andrew Colvett, weighed in, saying Mikey was so traumatized he couldn't even remember who he called. 3 versions of the same moment, none of them aligning. And here's the kicker. In the immediate aftermath, while the world was still processing Charlie's passing, Mikey wasn't grieving in the background. He was on camera at Liberty University, delivering a tribute so polished, so rehearsed, that it left students and staff alike questioning how someone could shift from shock to performance mode that quickly. Unless, of course, he'd had time to prepare.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mikey McCoy. I had the unique honor, blessing, and privilege of a lifetime to not only call Charlie a precious friend, mentor, but to travel with him literally everywhere.
But the real question isn't just about Mikey's behavior. It's about the speed at which Turning Point pushed him forward as Charlie's successor. Within days, he was giving speeches, sitting for interviews, even stepping into leadership roles at events Charlie had been scheduled to headline. Sources say this wasn't organic, it was strategic. Leadership allegedly knew that if Charlie's suspicions about Mikey's personal life ever went public, the organization's credibility would collapse. So they needed a narrative, one where Mikey wasn't just a grieving friend, but the natural heir to Charlie's legacy. The problem? Charlie had been distancing himself from Turning Point for months, clashing with donors, even floating the idea of bringing Candace Owens back into the fold, a move that insiders say infuriated the same people now propping up Mikey. And then, just like that, Charlie was gone, and the man he'd allegedly been investigating was suddenly the face of the movement.
So now when I see young couples, I tell them, please, don't put it off. Especially if you're a young woman, don't put it off. You can always have a career. You can always, go back to work. You can never just go back to having children. And they grow so fast and so quickly, but I was praying, both of us were, we were really excited to just expand.
Now, let's connect the dots. 4 days before the shooting, during a trip to South Korea, Mikey filmed Charlie in a way he never had before. Casual, almost intimate footage of him walking and talking, the kind of content that would later be repurposed as a tribute reel. At the time, it seemed like a sweet moment between colleagues, but insiders now say it was part of a larger effort to control Charlie's image after his passing. And here's where it gets even stranger. Mikey's wife, who was also on that trip, conveniently recorded hours of footage of Charlie and Erica together. Family moments, private conversations, the kind of material that would humanize them in the event of a tragedy. Coincidence? Or was someone making sure they had the right content ready to shape the story? Then there's the matter of Erica's travel records. Investigators looking into the background noise around Charlie's final days discovered something unsettling. Her movements over the past year had been tracked by 2 private aircraft, one registered in Egypt, another in a neighboring region, following her to locations she visited alone and with Charlie. Surveillance? Or just a bizarre coincidence? Either way, the timing is impossible to ignore, because the second Charlie was gone, the organization didn't just rally around Erica, they positioned her. And Mikey wasn't just a supportive friend. He was the one walking her through decisions, whispering in her ear about the future of Turning Point, even emotional in interviews about how she reminded him of Charlie. A touching sentiment, unless you consider the possibility that he wasn't just comparing her to his late boss, but ensuring she stayed on script.
Whenever the authority says something and not prod any further. We can't allow that to happen here. I won't allow that to happen here because this something terrible has traumatized the world, okay? And I feel as though when it comes to this, the media, the government, the talking heads, everyone is confusing us about what actually took place with Charlie.
But here's the part that ties it all together. The whistleblower claims that if this affair is ever confirmed, every lie told after Charlie's passing suddenly makes sense. The conflicting phone call stories? A cover for who Mikey was really talking to. The rushed push to make him the new face of the organization? A preemptive strike to control the narrative before the truth got out. Even the way Turning Point has handled the fallout, silence, deflection, carefully worded statements, fits the pattern of an operation trying to outrun its own secrets. And the scariest part? The deeper you dig, the more it looks like Charlie wasn't just a victim of a lone shooter. He was a man who knew too much, who'd started asking the wrong questions, and who paid the ultimate price before he could expose what was really happening behind the scenes. Now, let's talk about the Korea trip again, because this is where the timeline gets really interesting. Sources say Charlie had been acting differently for weeks, distracted, irritable, even snapping at staff over minor issues. Then, during that overseas visit, he allegedly confronted Mikey about rumors he'd heard. We don't know what was said, but we do know that immediately after, Mikey started filming Charlie in a way that felt more like documentation than memory making. And then there's the fact that, according to flight records, those same 2 aircraft tracking Erica, they pinged in the region during the exact dates of the trip. If this was about protecting Mikey's secret, who else was involved? And how far were they willing to go to keep it buried?
I don't think they don't not benefit.
Yeah.
But to me, it smelled like this crazy inside job.
Yeah.
And then now we're seeing all the people involved and the post-campaign of these people that are alleged or seem really suspicious. Their rhetoric and what they're saying once they go out into the world, and they're everywhere.
But the most damning piece of this puzzle isn't just the affair or the cover-up. It's the way Mikey has leaned into his new role. Within weeks, he was giving speeches at Liberty University, sitting for podcast interviews, even stepping in as the emotional bridge between Erica and the organization. And every time he speaks, there's this eerie confidence, like a man who knows he's been given a second chance. Meanwhile, the official story keeps shifting. First, Mikey called Erica. Then he called his dad. Then he couldn't remember. And through it all, Turning Point's leadership has stayed silent on the contradictions, as if the less they say, the less anyone will notice. But we've learned one thing about scandals like this. the more they try to bury it, the louder the truth gets. And that brings us to the final, chilling question. If Mikey McCoy was more to Charlie Kirk than just a chief of staff, what other secrets were lost with him that night in Utah? Because the deeper we look, the more it seems like this wasn't just about one man's tragedy. It was about an organization protecting its future. It was about a young protege with everything to lose. And it was about a truth so dangerous that someone may have decided the only way to keep it hidden was to ensure Charlie Kirk never got the chance to tell it. The shooter pulled the trigger, but the real conspiracy might have started long before that bullet was ever fired. And if that's the case, then the question isn't just who knew, it's who's still lying. Because in the world of Turning Point USA, the cover-up is always bigger than the crime. And this one, it's only just beginning to unravel.
She really is just the moment. The speech that she gave, everybody was just wowed by her. I felt my energy personally, like last night going into that, I was effectively like soaring in the air above the convention center, like a dragon above, waiting for Erica to just be like, fire. And I was just gonna come down and swoop in out of nowhere. All the politicians, all the fake people, everyone was just gonna be in that moment.
The moment Charlie Kirk fell, Mikey McCoy didn't just step into the spotlight, he seized it. And the speed at which Turning Point USA pushed him forward wasn't just suspicious, it was calculated. Within days, he was delivering tributes at Liberty University, sitting for high-profile interviews, even positioning himself as the emotional bridge between Erica Kirk and the organization's future. But here's the part that doesn't add up. If this was really about grief, why did it feel like a coronation? Insiders claim Mikey's rapid rise wasn't just opportunity, it was leverage. Because if Charlie had uncovered the truth about his chief of staff's private life, then his sudden absence wouldn't just be a tragedy. It would be the perfect opening for someone with everything to lose to rewrite the story entirely.
Truthfully, I will never forget what I saw because I've seen Mikey almost every day for the past 2 years. I know his personality very well. He's a very bubbly guy. He's a very happy guy almost all of the time. And I'll never forget what I saw because it was clear in the moment that he was profoundly freaked out. What I'll always remember is the way his lip was quivering, which I'd never seen before.
Let's talk about those phone calls again, because the contradictions aren't just odd, they're damning. Erica Kirk says Mikey screamed, "He's been shot," into the phone, a frantic cry that sent her racing to Utah. But Mikey's father, Pastor Robert McCoy, insists his son called him first, begging for prayers. Then there's Andrew Colvett, the executive producer of Charlie's show, who claims Mikey was so traumatized he couldn't even remember who he dialed. 3 versions of the same moment, none of them matching the man we see on camera. Calm, composed, walking away from the chaos like he already knew the script. And here's the question that won't go away. If Mikey was really making those calls in a panic, why does the footage show him lifting the phone to his ear before the scream? Unless, of course, the scream wasn't for Erica at all. Unless it was a distraction. Now, let's look at the tributes. Mikey's speeches at Liberty University weren't just emotional, they were polished. Too polished. Sources inside Turning Point say his remarks about Charlie's legacy, his faith, his vision for the future, all followed a carefully crafted narrative, one that conveniently left out any mention of the personal tensions between Charlie and the organization in his final months. And why would a grieving chief of staff need to rehearse his grief? Unless the real story wasn't about loss, it was about control. Because if Charlie had been digging into Mikey's private life, then every word spoken in his memory wasn't just a tribute, it was a rewrite. A way to bury the past under layers of heroic remembrance, ensuring that the only version of Charlie Kirk that survived was the one that kept Mikey's secrets safe.
And I guess it's very disgusting for me as someone who witnessed this, who saw Mikey hugely distressed and then step up in the moment, because after that call was over, I saw Mikey like get total mastery of himself, that he realized he had to step up in this situation. And from that point, he was like a general directing a battle where he was, grabbing people and saying, okay, we need to get to the hospital and we need to do these things.
But the cracks in this story run deeper than just Mikey's behavior. Let's talk about the way Turning Point handled the aftermath. Within hours of Charlie's passing, the organization wasn't just mourning, they were mobilizing. Mikey was front and center, giving interviews, appearing at events, even stepping into leadership roles that had once been Charlie's domain. And every time he spoke, the message was the same. Charlie's legacy lives on. But what if that legacy was being repurposed? What if the real reason Mikey was pushed so quickly wasn't just to fill a void, but to control the narrative before the wrong questions started getting asked? Because here's what we know. Charlie had been clashing with donors. He'd been talking about bringing Candace Owens back into the fold, a move that would have upended the organization's carefully curated image. And he'd been asking questions, the kind of questions that, if answered, might have exposed more than just an affair.
How many kids did you guys want to have?
We wanted to have 4. Yeah. And I was praying to God that I was pregnant when he got murdered.
Oh, wow. I thought of that once. Just like whether it was meant to be or whether
I know.
we'd get news like that.
I was like, oh goodness, that would be the ultimate blessing out of this catastrophe.
And then there's the matter of the Korea trip. 4 days before the shooting, Mikey filmed Charlie in a way that felt less like documentation and more like evidence. Casual footage of him walking, talking, laughing, clips that would later be repurposed as tribute reels. At the time, it seemed like a sweet moment between colleagues, but insiders now say it was part of a larger pattern. Because Mikey's wife was also on that trip, and she just happened to record hours of footage of Charlie and Erica together. Private moments, family interactions, the kind of content that would humanize them in the event of a tragedy. Coincidence? Or was someone making sure they had the right material ready to shape the story after Charlie was gone? And why did those same 2 private aircraft, one registered in Egypt, another in a neighboring region, ping in the area during the exact dates of the trip? Surveillance? Or just another layer in a story that's starting to feel less like grief and more like a setup? But the most damning piece of this puzzle isn't just the affair or the cover-up. It's the way Mikey has leaned into his new role. He's not just filling Charlie's shoes. He's wearing them like they were made for him. And every time he steps onto a stage, every time he gives an interview, there's this eerie confidence, like a man who knows he's been given a second chance. Meanwhile, the official story keeps shifting. First, Mikey called Erica. Then he called his dad. Then he couldn't remember. And through it all, Turning Point's leadership has stayed silent on the contradictions, as if the less they say, the less anyone will notice. But we've learned one thing about scandals like this. The more they try to bury it, the louder the truth gets.
And I want to be very clear that I believe, in fact, I know that towards the end, Charlie was fighting for custody of himself. I want to say that. I want to say that plainly. And there are lies that are being told and they need to be slapped down right now.
Now, here's where things get even stranger. Because if this affair is real, then every lie told after Charlie's passing suddenly makes sense. The conflicting phone call stories? A cover for who Mikey was really talking to. The rushed push to make him the new face of the organization? A preemptive strike to control the narrative before the truth got out. Even the way Turning Point has handled the fallout. Silence, deflection, carefully worded statements. Fits the pattern of an operation trying to outrun its own secrets. And the scariest part? The deeper you dig, the more it looks like Charlie wasn't just a victim of a lone shooter. He was a man who knew too much, who'd started asking the wrong questions, and who paid the ultimate price before he could expose what was really happening behind the scenes. But the story doesn't end there, because if this is true, then the cover-up isn't over. It's just getting started. And the next revelation could shatter Turning Point USA for good. So we've got to ask, who's really pulling the strings here? And what happens when the truth finally comes out? Stay tuned, stay curious, and remember, sometimes the loudest secrets are the ones nobody's talking about. Until next time, keep your eyes open and your suspicions sharper, because in a world this twisted, the next bombshell is always just around the corner.